All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest edition of Blackhawks Banter, presented, of course, by the Hockey Writers. This is our weekly get-together to discuss all things Chicago Blackhawks. This is our 22nd episode of Blackhawks Banter. So depending on when you started your Blackhawk fandom, this is either the Troy Brouwer episode, or if you're a graybeard, literally like myself, this is the Adam Creighton episode of Blackhawks Banter. So, joined by our usual crew, my top line, as always, we have our senior staff writer, Gail Kauchak, with us. Hello, Gail. How are you? Her partner in crime, Brooke LoFurno. How are you, Brooke? Got your springtime look going. Very nice. And, of course, our Blackhawks fan from north of the border, checking in from Toronto, Shaun Filippelli. How are you, Shaun?
Good, Greg. How are you?
We're doing all right. All things considered, we're doing all right. So before we get into the meat and potatoes of tonight's show, don't forget, if you're watching on our Facebook page, click that like button. If you're over on our YouTube channel, please hit subscribe. And also, you can follow the Hockey Writers on Twitter. All of our individual Twitter handles are right there on the screen. So click follow. You'll never miss an update, news, a gripe, anything. You'll stay up to date, and you'll catch all of our big Hockey Writer shows. Some more info on that coming up later. I got to tease it. I don't want to give away the big news early. Got to keep people watching. So let's get right to it. It was a little bit of another rough week for the Blackhawks, as they dropped 2 out of their 3 games, only getting 2 out of a possible 6 points. They started Tuesday night with their only win of the week it was 2-1 over the Hurricanes, but that was fair to say that was the worst game they played all week, and yet that was the one they won. Then they lost the rematch Thursday 4-3. They made a spirited comeback there in the third period, only to give up the game-winning goal, which is 29 seconds to play. That one hurt. They made such a nice effort in the third period, and then they got kind of punched in the gut, and all the air got let out. Saturday, guess what? It was a frustrating loss to the Nashville Predators, but for different reasons. They actually played a really good game against them. It was probably their best 5-on-5 game of the season. They had a season-high 41 shots on goal, but they flipped the switch. It was the power play that let them down in that game. They couldn't convert on a lengthy 5-on-3 to get back in the game. They actually gave up a shorthanded penalty shot goal at some point. So it was another rough one to watch against those stinking Predators. So what are your takeaways from this past week? Who's the player you like the most, or just general observations? We're going to start with Gail. She, of course, today came up with our Blackhawks Star of the Week. So who did you pick, Gail, and why?
Okay, well, first off, I just want to mention that this week was tough. It was that they came so close on Thursday to at least getting to overtime and getting that 1 point, and then so frustrating to 5 times in a row not be able to beat the Predators. But for my Star of the Week, I went with Dylan Strome. For some good personal reasons as well. Over the past weekend, him and his girlfriend Taylor welcomed their daughter into the world, Wesley Margaret Strome. So he missed a game. He missed Sunday's game, I believe, against the Predators, but then he was back and raring to go on Tuesday, motivated. And he did end up starting things off with the first goal of the game. And then on Thursday, he was the one that tied it up 3-3 at the end and gave them a chance to win, even though they didn't, but whatever. And then on Saturday, Strome was actually on a line with Pius Suter and Matthias Janmark, the third line, since Doc moved up to the first line. And statistically, they were the best line for the Blackhawks, generating 13 scoring chances in 12 minutes. So hopefully they can continue with that. And Strome is a big part of that. Strome also, I never pegged him for a big faceoff guy, but he's been doing a lot better with his faceoffs lately. And even though he's not technically centering a line, he has been being used with the faceoff. So, that's another option, a versatile option moving forward. So I have hopes that Strome can continue, and that's why he was my Star of the Week.
All right. Very, very good choice. I think these are getting difficult. Before it was like, oh, let's write about Alex DeBrincat again or Kevin Lincoln. And now it's like, well, they kind of all stink. So who do we pick? So that was a good choice. Shaun, what are your takeaways from last week?
Yeah, first of all, I agree with Gail's pick. Clearly, I mean, Strome stood out for all the right reasons. It was great to see him come back with that bounce to his step. Gail hit all the points right off the top that he was doing everything right, even in the faceoff circle. I know it was a tougher go last game, but he just seems to have a new energy to his game, and that's great to see. So hopefully, if it was for personal reasons, he came back with more energy. Hopefully, he can maintain that momentum. As far as general takeaways go, I think I probably speak for all of us when I say that. Thursday's loss was tough, but losing and getting blanked by the Predators was brutal. Anyone who watches this show knows that I'm not a fan, clearly, of the Predators. I don't think any of us are, but all bias aside, I still can't wrap my head around why this Blackhawks team can't pick it up and play against this Predators team. Of all years, I don't know why this is the year that they're having so much trouble. To just have such a lack of energy and a lack of will against that team. I know that they outplayed them 5-on-5 and they outshot them, but clearly they didn't get it done. They didn't convert. And that's really what matters most. So I don't care if it was ugly. I don't care how they were going to get it done. They just didn't. So they failed to. So my takeaways are simply that they seem to have this energy to them, this Blackhawks team, that they come out to play in spurts. We've seen that, and that's sort of helped them gain some success throughout the year. But those spurts have to become more constant. If they're going to expect any kind of sustainable success, and if they want to get back into a playoff spot, they need to find more sustainability to that energy. It's just too few and far between those little spurts, and they need to make that more of a constant. We saw this last week, and that's what they failed at. There was the energy at the wrong times, not all the time. So that's what we need to see more of.
Yeah, for sure. And that was a problem we saw the last two seasons, where it seemed those first couple months they just had struggles showing up on time, playing 60 minutes, and it's been a struggle a lot for much of the year. A lot of that's been covered up by the power play and the goaltending. But that leads, when it comes down to preparedness or not playing a full 60, that goes back to the bench, but more on that later. So Brooke, what did you think of this past week?
Yeah, I'm with Shaun. I mean, I think I said this for the past couple weeks, and so did Shaun, that Nashville stinks, and I don't get what we're doing. And they were playing with half a team, too. Most of their big guns were out, and so I thought, okay, maybe this might be the time we'll finally win against them, and it just didn't. And it bothers me that we keep doing this pattern of starting really slow and then all of a sudden in the third period coming alive all of a sudden and starting to play really well towards the end of the game. And it's always like, okay, well, you were, like you said, 60 minutes late on that one. You should have showed up in the first and second period. So that gets really frustrating. And it also, I understand in this league, you can't go into games thinking that you're going to beat an opponent, or you can't just assume you're going to, even if it makes sense, because anyone can beat anyone in this league. Everyone's a pro, everyone's doing the same thing. But you would think they would have more desperation against the Predators, because now all of a sudden they were tied. Now all of a sudden they're who you're in the playoff hunt with. And you would think, like Shaun said, you would come out a little bit more aggressive. And it just, I don't know, like you said, it could be a bench thing. It probably is a bench thing, but more on that later. But it is really frustrating to see how you can see spurts of them and what they could be. And like you said, Greg, this has been going on for a few seasons now, not just this season. I don't know why they can't consistently pull anything together, and it shows why it's holding this team back.
Oh yeah, for sure. And that's frustrating, because there's so many of these games they're there for the taking. And that's why I said last week when we had our little roundtable discussion on who's going to be the biggest competition for the Blackhawks to make the playoffs, I said themselves, because there's so many of these games, they end up beating themselves because they take a period off, they take a half a period off, they take the final shift of the third period off. They're not talented enough to overcome those types of lapses on the ice. This isn't the 2013 team. Well, that team, that's a bad example. That team never took a shift off, but they don't have the talent to overcome that. They have to be that work hard, try hard team. For our basketball fans, like, they have to be those Andre Nocioni bled Bulls. That's what they have to be. They have to be the team that just scratches and claws for every bit, because that's the only way they're going to get it. And if they don't have that mentality, then they're not going to get it done. And that's what we're seeing. And I think that mentality starts at the top. It's got to be, the desperation has to come from the coaching staff first and work its way down. And I don't know what's being said. None of us do. We're not there, but it doesn't appear to be the right message. So that was last week. We'll put that in our distant rearview mirrors. Let's forget about that week. It's over. Let's talk about things that are going on now and it's going to be happening throughout this week. There was some other off-ice news this week, not earth-shattering by any means, but Stan's done it again. He's gone out and brought back another lost soul. Another former Blackhawk is returning. Are you ready for this? It's Vinnie Hinostroza part 2. Contain your excitement, guys. It's okay. It'll be all right. Yes, they traded Brad Morrison to the Florida Panthers to reacquire Vinnie Hinostroza. I think that was on Friday. Morrison had 3 goals and 5 points in just 6 games for the Ice Hogs. Otherwise, he spent much of the year in the ECHL. If you're wondering, that name kind of sounds familiar. That's who we acquired from the Kings for Ole Mata. So we essentially traded Ole Mata for Vinnie Hinostroza. Vinny only got into 9 games with his old pal Q. That sounds familiar. No points in those 9 games, and he spent the rest of the year on the taxi squad. So what do we think of this move? Shaun, this is just a whole lot of nothing, right?
I would certainly agree. As you alluded to, I don't think any of us should be surprised by this point, especially Bowman trying to find ways to reunite and see if he can re-energize some players to come back and do what maybe they were showing some momentum of doing in their first tenure with the team. Unfortunately, most of those times it has not worked out as perhaps he would have projected it could or it would, or that fans would have hoped. So I think we sort of have to take this one and proceed with caution here. I'll say admittedly, I was a Hinostroza fan. I liked what he brought to the team. I never really expected much of him, but I liked the skill set that he showed and the fact that he was a skilled little player. It just looked like he could get in there and make a nice little play and get the puck where he needed to go. I mean, he served a purpose. So when he was here, I liked him. When he left, it kind of sucked, but didn't really move the needle much then. And to be honest, I don't think it moves the needle much now getting him back. So all I can really say is obviously he went out and he had a pretty good year in Arizona in that first year that he went there, but then he's regressed since. So whether that's just been a matter of not having some cohesion where he's played or just not having the right fit, maybe Chicago will be the right fit again. But again, feels like an age-old story. We say this about all these players that return, and it never really seems to shape up the way that anyone hopes it will. So I'll just say optimistically, hopefully Hinostroza comes back, re-energizes, gets another opportunity here and likes being in Chicago, and maybe we'll get a little more out of him.
All right. Brooke, have you pre-ordered your reverse retro Vinnie Hinostroza jersey yet?
Yes, I did. I'm so excited. I actually kind of like the move, but in a kind of unconventional way. It's more about I don't know. I mean, obviously none of us are surprised, but what's funny is during the Carolina series, they did show Bowman sitting in the box or whatever up there, and he was on the phone, and I was thinking to myself, okay, you better be doing something, exciting here. Like, you have a lot of work to do. And then the next day they said they required Vinny. I'm like, is that what you were on the phone doing during that whole game? I'm like, are you serious? But like I said, I don't mind it. We didn't really give up anything for him, and I've always kind of griped about our bottom 6 just being a kind of a scattered. But I think, I like that he's fast, and I think he could bring something of importance. But I think this move also brings more intrigue than anything with Stan. Like, okay, if you're bringing Vinny, who are you moving? Something's got to give, because there's not a whole ton of room now on the bottom 2 lines. So either someone's getting moved or Vinny's going to be another healthy scratch. But like I said, I've always liked Vinny. I was sad when he got traded. I think he could bring something, but we'll just have to see what that is with this team. But yeah, more intriguing than anything.
Gail, yay, nay, eh?
I've always liked Hinostroza. I think he's a local guy, I've always liked him. But in regards to his play, I don't know. I mean, all these retreads, it's just, geez. Who else are we going to get back, But, okay, so Hinostroza, he's 27 years old. He's relatively young. So let's hope for a resurgence. Let's hope that this is one of the ones that maybe is going to work out. I'm interested, where is he going to fit in the lineup? Like today in practice, he was on the second line. and he bumped Brandon Hagel. So it's just, I'm curious. I'm curious as to where it's going to go.
Yeah, we shall see. I'm sure. I don't know. I'm not even going to go down that Brendan Hagel road. That just put my blood pressure through the roof. I saw a lot of people on Twitter when this happened, making a big deal. Oh, this is a stupid trade. Blah. It's, what this is? This was two agents that had players who were unhappy, and they made a couple phone calls and they facilitated a deal. Hey, we got this guy who's unhappy to be here. Hey, we got this guy who's unhappy to be here. Let's swap them and do each other a favor. That's pretty much what's going on there. It's two GMs doing each other a favor. Morrison, as I said, he played most of the year in the ECHL. Only had 6 games in the AHL, and he looked pretty good. He had a two-goal game in his first game for the Ice Hogs, but he's not in the long-term plans. And that was probably the reason why he was in the ECHL instead of the AHL. They wanted to give that AHL playing time to guys that may be here in a couple of years. So listen, if you get Hinostroza for a guy playing in the ECHL and you get 1 NHL point on a Hinostroza, then that's a pretty good swap. But I don't have any expectations. Frankly, I don't think he even should be playing. But if you can get him on the taxi squad, and then one of those young kids that are doing nothing on the taxi squad can now go to Rockford and actually get some valuable playing time, then it's not a bad thing either. One thing that, besides taking Brendan Hagel's spot, one thing that has me not happy about this is he's wearing number 28. Why the hell is 28 not retired already? For crying out loud, nobody should wear that after Steve Larmer. I will say that every single time somebody unworthy of that number comes along and picks it. All right. So there's Vinnie. We'll see. I don't think anything's really going to come up with that. I don't think we're going to see a whole lot of him. But if we do, it means he's playing well, and that would be okay.
I don't know. Our predictions are always wrong. So the players we think they're going to be good end up being bad, and the players we think are going to be bad are good. So who knows?
Yeah. So I expect him to be centering Patrick Kane.
Yep, exactly. I was going to say that.
So. All right. So moving right along, we're going to get over the big Vinnie Hinostroza hoopla. I'm going to bring you guys down from that exciting news. The month of March, the quote unquote hell month, it's come and gone. At the beginning of this month, the last time I was the ringleader, I had you guys predict, do you think the Blackhawks are going to still be in a playoff spot come April 1st? And we all said they would be. Basically, I think a lot of us thought everybody behind them is going to be tough to catch up. Well, they kind of proved us all wrong, because as we sit here 2 games into April, if the Stanley Cup playoffs were to start today, the Blackhawks would be just like us and watching from our couches. There are many reasons why this once thought comfortable lead has evaporated. The power plays come back down to earth. We've discussed that. The goaltending had a little bit of a bump in the road. It's since gotten better. They're getting outshot by big margins normally. The overall play in the defensive zone on some nights has just been flat out brutal. They can't win a face-off. The list goes on and on. Going forward, which one of these things is your biggest concern as far as the Blackhawks trying to get one of those playoff spots? And if it isn't one of these, maybe it's something I didn't mention because there is so many things. But Brooke, what's your biggest concern heading down the stretch?
Well, honestly, everything is. I don't even think you can really pinpoint one thing, because it seems like a lot of things are wrong. But I will say it is the face-offs. I think we can kind of say this till we're blue in the face, but it's so evident every game that you can't not mention it. If Vinnie can come in and win a face-off, I'll be happy with the trade. I don't think that's going to happen. But at this point, I feel like just try anyone there, just anyone, because it's so frustrating. It's what's costing them games. They can't maintain possession. It hurts them on the power play. I don't know what it is. And the thing that bothers me is it seems like we have a plethora of centers. I feel like we shouldn't be struggling this much, and it doesn't seem like anyone can consistently put it together. And that's what bothers me. So we spend a lot of time focusing on this during the off season, and then this is what we get. And it's so frustrating, but that needs to be addressed immediately, because without Taze, this is going to really hurt us down the stretch, and even maybe next year too. Like, this is an issue. Stan needs to get on the phone and address this, but I don't trust him to make the right move for that.
Yeah, I took down some notes knowing that you're going to talk about the face-offs. On Strome, our star of the week, go over to hockeywriters.com and read up Gail's write-up on Mr. Strome. His first game back, he won 7 of his 8 faceoffs. The next game, he won 10 of 18. And then in Nashville, he only took 8 draws the whole game. What is that? What is that? Get him in the freaking dot. Especially, I got driven up the wall, that 5-on-3 power play, watching Kirby Dach lose 3 straight offensive zone faceoffs. I love Kirby Dach. Yes, he needs to play. Yes, he needs to get the progression. But at that moment, and when the game is on the line, maybe that's not the time he gets to learn a lesson. Okay, he loses the first one. Fine. Second one, why is he taking the third one? That cost them that entire power play because they couldn't get any sustained zone time. So there, yes, I wanted to add to your face-off gripe. And maybe let Strome get some more face-offs. Gail, what's your biggest concern going forward?
Okay, I have to go off on a tangent based upon what you guys just said. If you recall on the broadcast, Kendall Coyne-Schofield was on. Yay, good for her. She did a great job. But during that 5-on-3 play, I think she made some kind of mention of, oh my gosh, she lost another draw. Maybe next time this would be a good time to, get someone else in there for that offensive draw. And Pat Foley, well, too late now. Sorry.
And that's the thing that frustrates me is everybody on the planet can see what needs to change except the one guy that can make the freaking change. It's been that way for 3 years.
Well,
all
it's
right.
too late. They'll probably do it. Let's watch the next game. There'll be some adjustments. But anyway. Okay, so my biggest concern with the Blackhawks is I think it's the intangible. I think just not being able to close out games and not having that killer instinct. They've shown that they're resilient. They've shown that they can come from behind. They've shown that they can play and hang with the elite clubs like the Hurricanes and the Lightning. They've had their time, but they just can't put together that 60-minute effort. They can put together 20 or 40 or spurts. And Shaun, you said this earlier, so it's like beating a dead horse. But yeah, and then they can come from behind, but then even when they're ahead, they're giving up. They don't know how to win. They haven't learned how to win yet. And back in the day when they were the Stanley Cup dynasty, they were able to do these kinds of things. And now it's just a young team that still doesn't learn how to do that. And I think that's the biggest concern. I think that they're learning. I think that they're going to get better, but I'm not sure if it's going to be in time for a postseason.
Yeah, we shall see how that goes. This team, as I said earlier, I don't think this team has the talent to flip the switch, as we used to say back in the good old days. They're not good enough to do that. Shaun, what's these last few weeks of the season? What has you staying up at night?
Well, I mean, I know that they just hit a season high in this regard, so it might sound hypocritical, but that's the first time they've done it all year. Them not getting shots on net and not getting enough of them on a per game basis, it's something I just can't help but notice every single game. And to me, it just goes back to the basics. I mean, I know faceoffs are important to win, obviously, to get possession, which is going to help you get shots on net. But I wanted to go straight to the shots factor, because the reality is you're not going to score goals without taking shots. It's pretty simple. And like we all know, as much as there could be complexities to this game, quite frankly, it's kind of a simple one in its own right. So got to get shots on net if you're going to expect to be scoring any goals. And I mean, they showed a good sign out against the Predators, clearly didn't convert, but that's a step in the right direction. As the old adage goes, just throw pucks at the net and you never know what's going to happen. And I just don't know why they're trying to get too cute and too fancy sometimes, when the reality is they need to get back to the basics where they can get the puck out of your zone, get it into the offensive zone, and throw it on net. Sounds simple, but quite frankly, they need to go to that approach, because whatever they're doing now isn't working. They're not landing enough, which means they're not scoring enough. Get more shots on net and we'll see a higher conversion. Simple.
Yeah, it does sound simple. What's the old Wayne Gretzky line? You miss every single shot you don't take.
Yep.
It sounds cliche, but it's true. Again, that 5-on-3 power play, go back to that. They just sat there and tried to set up the perfect pass. It's like you're down 2 goals with 10 minutes to play. Shoot
on net.
The flipping puck. All right. My biggest concern down the stretch, it's just, I don't think this team is being put in the right positions to succeed. The coaching staff's job is to put your team, what you have, put them in position to succeed. I don't think that's been happening a lot, and still my concerns. And I know you guys are tired of me complaining about the defensive structure. Believe me, I'm tired of complaining about it at this point. We still see the same mistakes. We still see defensemen on the wrong side, 3 guys below the line. We still see the slot left uncovered. It's time to take this stupid man-on-man system, put it in a rocket ship, align that rocket ship, and blast that sucker into the center of the sun, never to return. Enough is enough. It doesn't work. We don't have the horses. We keep trying to put round pegs in the square holes. It's just not going to work. Part of the reason it doesn't work is because this system, the defensive system, in theory sounds great, but in practice it stinks. You got your forwards kind of playing above the dots to try and lead the breakout. And I know it's all about offense in this day and age, and that's fine. But because our guys are drifting to the blue line, it leaves our 2 defensemen alone with 3 or 4 guys forechecking on them. That's why we see all these terrible turnovers in the middle of the ice, these goals that come off of them, because they're getting left alone on an island, and that's never good. We saw it. I pointed out, I'm pretty sure it was a Nashville game. There was a play, the first forward out of the zone was Kirby Dach. Why is your center the first forward leaving the zone? That should never happen, ever. That's hockey 101. Your center should be your 3rd defenseman. He should be the last guy leaving the zone, and he's there the first guy. That just can't happen. And again, I'm not picking on Kirby Dach. I love Kirby Dach, and he's a young player playing in the first time I get it. But those are where the coaches need to say, hey, this is it. Maybe they are, but it's just, you see the same mistakes get made over and over again. And that's when you just start going, either they're not saying the right thing or they've been tuned out. Neither of those are acceptable. All right. I feel better. Thank you for allowing me to rant.
I think my favorite during the games also kind of has to do with that is when we have like 3 or 4 people or 4 out of 5 people in the corner battling for the puck, and then that leaves the middle of the ice wide open and people just come in and score. I'm like, every game we do that. It annoys me.
Yeah, it's yes, it's very frustrating to watch the same mistakes get made over and over again. But as I said, thank you for allowing me to rant, and thank all of you guys for listening to me rant and all of us discuss here on Blackhawks Banter. Don't forget to like that Facebook page and the YouTube channel, subscribe to that, and follow us all on Twitter. You want to subscribe to the YouTube channel because we've got our next edition of the Hockey Writers Live is going to feature Ben Pope, the terrific beat writer for the Blackhawks with the Chicago Sun-Times, and the 3 of you are going to get to join him and ask him some questions. So that should be fun. You guys are going to be doing that, recording that Wednesday night. So make sure you like the Facebook page and subscribe to the YouTube channel so you get updated when that one hits the air. More great Blackhawks coverage this week with Ben Pope of the Sun-Times and our Hockey Writers crew. That should be a fun night. So I'm sure you guys will make us all proud. So getting back to the business at hand tonight, let's focus on our defensemen for a little bit. These games get more important. There's kind of a dilemma. Do you increase our young guys playing time, or do you try and ride the vets because these games mean more? Guys like Boquist and Bodine and Mitchell and Kalnuk, they're never going to learn unless they play. So what do you think? Do you give the young guys more playing time, or do you see what the vets can do because you don't want to lose any more games heading into the playoff? But granted, the trade deadline could make this an easier decision depending on what happens. But what do you guys think? Agree or disagree? Play the young guys more down the stretch. Gail, what are your thoughts?
All right. Well, we seem to be on this I hate Jeremy Colleton train, so I'm going to turn it around a little bit and say that I actually have been pretty impressed with how he's handled the defensemen this year. He's got his veteran group. He's got Keith and Murphy, DeHaan, and Zadorov, and he has put them in given roles as well as tasked them with mentoring the younger players. And then you got this huge group of younger players. You've got Boquist, Mitchell, Bodine, Kalynuk, Carlson, and even Madison Bowie out there, right? Okay, so that's 10 players, 10 defensemen altogether that you have to try to keep on a positive trajectory. And I commend him for juggling that. You know, he's really had everybody playing, people going in and out, and I think that that's been very difficult, but I really do think that he's helping their growth and development moving forward in the long run with that. And to, answer your question that should the younger players play? Yes, I do. I think that they're ready to take this elevated role, and that is because of what's been happening all season. And if you intertwine them with the vets, and that's what we're seeing. We're seeing, what is it? Who's Keith is with Boquist, right? And then we've got Kalynuk that's been with DeHaan. So, you've got one of your vets with one of your newbies, so to speak. And I think that that's a good things will come if they keep doing that.
All righty. Shaun, what do you think? Young guys, or keep it the way it is?
I am all about letting these young kids play. I've been pretty consistent about that all year on this show in particular. To me, this was always supposed to be year development. They pounded that into our heads before the year, warning us that that's what was going to happen, and we all sort of braced ourselves for it. So to me, I'm all in on that approach. I know we've seen some success, and that's been great, and obviously I want them to win, and I want them to do well, but I think all of our priorities as fans was to hope that there was going to be some actual development so that we can see some sustained success, not just blips. And unfortunately, now we're seeing some of those blips, and that could be the problem with that kind of approach, where we need to be allowing more of that development. So certainly, do I want to see the youth play? Absolutely. Everywhere that they possibly can. We shouldn't be limiting their minutes in that respect, and we should give them every opportunity to, whether it's make mistakes or prove us wrong, or at least give a chance to grow through those opportunities. They should have that. This is the year to have that. With all of that said, I want to take it a step further and say that to me, it just shouldn't even be about youth. It shouldn't be that the young players should have a shorter leash than the veterans by any stretch. It should just be that the players who are in a position to play and get the job done are going to be allowed to play and get the job done. So I'd like to just sort of wipe away of thinking that the youth are on a shorter leash again and the vets have more give. I don't see it that way at all. I just think that all these athletes are there to play, develop, and see how they can build some cohesion together. So let's see who's getting that job done and let them do that.
All righty. Brooke, agree or disagree? More playing time for the kiddos?
Yes, I agree. And I think Gail kind of hit it on the head there with Colleton. It's not like he hasn't been giving them any time, which I commend them for. He has given them a good amount of time, so I'm glad he's done that. But I feel like at this point, we kind of realistically know where the team's at. Like, if we were, like, right in the Stanley Cup hunt and stuff, I'd be like, no, let's try to take a step back a bit. But realistically, we know this team is not going far. So, honestly, we kind of know with defensemen, since they take a longer time to develop, that trying to see what we have can be a really painful process if you're like in the Stanley Cup hunt, but we're not really there. So I feel like this is the perfect time because we have so many of them. We need to see what we have because then that will help us during this off season, who can stay, who needs to go. So it's kind of painful. Sometimes, like you said, you are going to see the growing pains and the mistakes, but I think it's the perfect time to do that now. We already know what we have in Murphy, DeHaan, and Keith, and I'm not saying to limit their time, but I do think that we shouldn't decrease the playing time for the youngers. They should be getting the time to see where they're at.
Yes, I agree. And I'm going to preface my thoughts on this by saying I don't think we need to bench any of these veteran guys, but we have to face facts. When this team, if and when this team becomes a legit cup contender again, guys like Keith and Murphy and DeHaan and Zadorov, they're not going to be part of that defensive core. It's going to be Boquist, Bodine, Mitchell, these young kids. So that being said, maybe give them a few more of those important shifts late in games or on power plays or on penalty kills. Put them in more pressure situations and see how they react. That's the only way you learn. And besides, we're seeing the veterans, we're worried about growing pains and mistakes, but we're seeing guys like DeHaan and Zadorov make mistakes that cost us goals. So if the veterans are costing you goals, then what's the difference if the rookies go out there and do the same thing? So, like, I'm not saying scratch Duncan Keith and leave Zadorov in Columbus, though I wouldn't be against that either. But just, you can keep the same minutes. It's just more important minutes, I think, especially for guys like Boquist. Get Bodine on the ice. There's nothing left for him in Rockford. He dominates when he's down in Rockford. Let him play at the NHL level. And as I said before we started, maybe the trade deadline opens up a spot or two So it's not as crowded back there. And that leads us to our next topic. Speaking of the trade deadline, this is our last get together before the big day, a week from, well, we're recording this on Monday, but you'll be watching this on Tuesday. Monday the 12th is the trade deadline. So the next time we get together and record, maybe this team looks completely different, maybe not, who knows. I'm not going to ask you to predict who's getting traded or who's not getting traded, because as we've proven time and time again, we're going to be wrong anyway, so why waste our breath? So I'm a big history guy, you guys know that. I love talking about years past. So what's been your most memorable Blackhawks trade? Not necessarily at the deadline, just any kind of trade. Memorable, not meaning it worked out great necessarily. Usually it's those ones that kind of blow up in our face that we remember. But Shaun, what's your most memorable Blackhawks trade?
Unfortunately, it's not a good one, in my opinion, or probably in all of our opinions at this point. Could be recency bias, but I'm still not over the fact that we don't have Panarin on this lineup anymore. So seeing him let go in 2017 for whatever the implications might have been for why that needed to happen or why it happened or whatever, I don't care. The reality is the magic that he was showing with him and Kane was just second to none. And that was just what a marvel to witness. And knowing that there was a chance he was going to go and then he had to be let go. And that was tough in and of itself. Now, the fact that we got Brendan Saad for one of his many returns to the Chicago Blackhawks was somewhat of a relief, because I did like Saad. I liked Saad when he was on the Blackhawks in his first run with the team. But it always felt like he was being set up for failure as far as that comparison goes. Brendan Saad was never going to be Artemi Panarin, and he wasn't. He didn't turn into that. He wasn't supposed to be that. He played a role when he was here in that next stint, but in my opinion, he didn't play up to a level that made us look back on that trade in hindsight and say, hey, it really worked out for the Blackhawks, because obviously it didn't. So not only did we lose a generational talent in Panarin and have seen him go on to become the superstar that we all knew he would, but the return just never mapped out into being anything that made sense for that kind of an exchange. So again, for all the wrong reasons, 2017, losing Panarin still stings to me. Yeah,
that's a tough one. And of course, hindsight, we've got the luxury of hindsight, but yeah, at the time a lot of that didn't make a lot of sense, and it hurts watching them do those things in other uniforms. Brooke, what's your most memorable Blackhawks trade?
Well, since Shaun said that, I feel like I know this has been a couple years ago, but honestly, I'm still not over it. I thought time would heal all wounds, but when I watch him play, I'm like, I can't believe Stan would do that. That just frustrates me so much. So yeah, never getting over it. So if we want to keep complaining about that, I'm all for that. But I'm going to say that my most memorable trade, when you had mentioned in the outline, Greg, I thought of trade deadline. So, and I will say Antoine Vermette in 2015 for a good reason. I think probably that was one of Stan's best moves, because we already were in a good position to win the Stanley Cup in 2015. And then when we got him, it was like everyone knew that was like our icing on the cake. We knew we were going to go all the way. So I will say that was a very good trade, and it was at the trade deadline, but it was also, I think, one of his best moves just in general. So I'm going to go with that. It's always fun to look back on that one, to think of how good of a trade that was.
Yeah, that was a good one. I was a big fan of that move. I've always liked Antoine Vermette. We certainly could use him right now at the face-off dot. Mm-hmm. That's for sure. Gail, your most memorable Blackhawks trade. I knew you were going to say this one too before you even answered the question.
Well, first off, you stole what I was just going to say. Oh my gosh, Vermette was such a great pickup. And what do you know? He was a really good center, really good at winning face-offs.
Weird. And they won a cup that year. It's so weird that those two things go hand in hand.
Okay, so I don't know if I'm so predictable, apparently. But yes, my decision with this most memorable trade in an extremely negative way was Nicholas Morrison. He was a fan favorite. He was one of my favorites. He was, he kind of was underrated in a certain way, because he there was so many other great players that were playing along that time. But he is one of the seven players that have won all 3 Stanley Cups with the Blackhawks. And it made sense. He was a cap casualty. He didn't have a no movement trade clause. So He was the one that went instead of, like Keith or Seabrook or somebody like that. But that was a tough one for me. And I think that to me, it just symbolized when Jomerson left, even though Sharp left in 2015, everybody kind of knew that was going to happen. They expected that. It was coming. But Jomerson leaving, to me, that was the end of the dynasty. That was the end of the era. And that really is, when he left, is when the Blackhawks defense, the blue line, started to go downhill. Now, granted, I'm not going to complain about. I know it made sense, but it was tough to see that one happen. And I'm not going to complain about Connor Murphy, who was that's who we acquired in transition for that. But again, it was the end of the era, end of a dynasty. Is why that one was so tough. A tough pill to swallow.
I never want to relive that day. First, we let Panarin go, and then a few minutes later, it was Jomerson. That was a really dark day.
That's right. Those happened on the same day. I was actually on a flight.
I
was on a flight, and when I got on the plane, I don't remember where we were going, but that doesn't matter. But I got on the plane, and Panarin and Jomerson were Blackhawks. When I put my phone back on, when we landed, they were in different cities. Both of those trades happened while I was in the air going somewhere. I forgot that those happened minutes apart from each other. What a terrible day that was.
Yeah, it was a good day.
Well, as you said, Gail, it's kind of an end of an era. My pick is also kind of represents the end of an era, so to speak. But a few years earlier, my most memorable trade is when the Blackhawks in 1999 traded away Chris Chelios to those hated Detroit Red Wings. That one cut hot, deep and left scars. That was kind of, I mean, not only that, and it wasn't just the fact that we got nothing for him. We got Andres Eriksson, who was a bum. And then we had 2 first-round picks that we drafted nobodies on. So we got nothing for one of the greatest defensemen that ever played a game. It wasn't just the fact that he went to Detroit and played 10 more years and won 2 Stanley Cups up there. That really signified that, like, they didn't care anymore. Prior to that, Roenick was traded. Jeremy Roenick was gone. Then the year after that, Ed Belfour was traded. Now it's Chris Chelios. The whole identity of that team that was right there for a couple of years was gone. And then that led to the really dark times that they didn't get out of. While Chelios was playing at a high level for a decade in Detroit, the Blackhawks had to actually pay the score to broadcast their radio games. That's how bad it was. For 2 seasons, the Blackhawks had to pay the radio station. It's supposed to be the other way around. And it took them that decade to finally dig themselves out in 2008-09 when, those 2 kids showed up and things kind of changed a little bit. But that one hurt. And it also started my long tradition of having to put Blackhawk jerseys away in the back of my closet. It seemed that no matter who I bought, they ended up getting traded. That Chelios jersey I had in high school, it got joined years later with a JP Dumont jersey. Yes, I owned one of those. There was a Christopher Stieg jersey back there now, a Nick Leddy, a Panarin, a Teuvo Teravainen, Brendan Saad's come out and gone back in. So yes, if I buy your jersey, well, yeah, some of them I've been able to pull back out, but so if you see me at the United Center and I'm wearing your jersey, you're getting traded, buddy. That's pretty much how it's been for the last 20 years. So maybe I'll bust that Chelios jersey out again because they can't trade him a second time, though it doesn't fit anymore. All right, let's go. One final topic. Wrap this up real quick. Quick fire here before the producers start yelling at us that we're going too long. Blackhawks have a big week ahead, another busy week, very big 2-game series starting later tonight, Tuesday night. 2 games against Dallas. They're only 3 points behind the Blackhawks right now, so they got to figure out a way to at least get to overtime. That's at the United Center, and then they start a 5-game road trip starting Saturday, the first of 2 at Columbus. Another team 3 points behind us. So big week. What do you guys? Just real quick, gonna just go around the board. 3 games, 6 points available. What are we going to do this week? Brooke, we'll start with you. 2 against Dallas, 1 against Columbus. How are we doing this week?
I actually see this as a good thing. Like when we were first struggling in the beginning of the year, and then all we needed to do was face a really bad Detroit team, and then all of a sudden we resurged, and Dallas and Columbus have been struggling, but we also have matched up pretty good with them. So I do see a good thing from this. So I'm gonna continue to say 3 only just because it's split, and I'm not good at this. You guys know this, so but I do see this as a good thing. I think we should be able to flip a script against them.
For sure. Gail, what do you think? How are we looking this week? You're a beacon of positivity. Don't let us down.
Well, this team just desperately needs some wins to gain some confidence and to kind of get back on a roll. To get to the week ahead, I guess, I would be hoping for a split with both of them. I don't think that we can hope for all 4 wins or anything like that, but a split, a win here and there, some good performance. And you know what? Can we just stop worrying about the playoffs already? If it happens, great. But let's just stay the course, work on the development, work on having a good game, work on having a good shift, work on getting the face off and winning it, and leave it at that. So anyway, split.
All right, sounds good. Shaun, what are we thinking this week looks like?
Well, hopefully better than recent weeks have. But, to Gail's point, I agree. If they can just focus on game by game, that's what they need to be doing. But the reality is that the playoff picture is in front of them, and we're getting to crunch time here. They're right in the midst of crunch time. So I would say, personally, it feels like as big of a game as it was against the Predators, I think this 2-game set against Dallas is going to really seal their fate one way or the other. I guess, be the most optimistic to this point and put myself on a limb. And for whatever reason, this dawned on me when I saw this question, that I'm going to say that they're going to start a 3-game winning streak, and it's going to start this week.
All righty. That would be wonderful. That would get the old next week's show would definitely have a better mood to it, I think. So the 2 against the Stars, and then a 5-game trip starts. That's 2 in Columbus, 2 in Detroit, who's playing better of late, and then 1 more game in Nashville. So just, you gotta, and I like what you said, Gail. I agree with that. Forget about worrying about getting the playoffs. Is it really going to make a difference if they get in or not? Face Tampa in the first round, that's not going to be pretty. So focus on just doing the right things and getting into good habits. I like that. I'm going to go with that because, hey, if you're focusing on what you're doing and you're playing a better game, you're probably going to make the playoffs because you're going to win more than you lose. So, yes, let's not stress about the points. Let's just look for small victories at this point. And those small victories will add up to big victories. Maybe, maybe not. So, let's see. Yeah, I'm going to steal Gail again. I'm just going with – they'll split the 2 against Dallas and 2 against Columbus. Just find a way to get a point each night, and you'll be fine. It's losing those games in regulations that's killing them. So let's stop doing that. All right, that's going to wrap up another enthralling episode of Blackhawks Banter. Thank you guys for joining me, Shaun, Gail, and Brooke. Always love our Monday night chats. And thank you to our 2 people behind the scenes that make this all happen. Melissa Boyd, Dean Plunkett, you guys do all the back stuff. You make us look good. You do the editing. You can do the promoting. We couldn't do it without you guys. And speaking of people we can't do it without, it's all of you for watching. Thank you guys so much. Make sure you like that Facebook page, that YouTube channel. Follow us on Twitter. Don't forget this week's edition of Hockey Writers Live is going to feature Ben Pope of the Chicago Sun-Times, along with Shaun, Gail, and Brooke. So be on the lookout for that. And, of course, we'll see you guys here next week. Thank you, everybody. Good night.